You're listening to the Otis Jiry channel.
Chapter 11. Abduction. Christmas passed, thankfully, without the loss of another child, as the team celebrated the new year in the privacy of George's living room, again reaffirming their dedication. This time Duncan was there with them to complete the team of 6. February was unusually cold and bleak at Grimsfell, with the ominous distant lights from the Abbey a constant reminder of the task ahead. The professor and Brother Dawson passed the days discussing psychiatry, and this time the professor's words were received with genuine interest, not as before as Abbot Gregory's lure. Amidst one of their many late-night chess games, the wind arose with the crashing they had heard the last time. Determined not to let it spoil their game, the two each intensified their determination to win. The professor had a checkmate lined up, and was ready to pounce with his knight. The door burst open with an enormous crash, causing the professor's knee-jerk reaction to explosively scatter the pieces from the chessboard, as in rushed 2 hooded figures wielding knives. Before they could begin defending themselves, the two were overpowered by the dark assailants and pulled to the floor amongst the remains of their game. The last they knew was sweet chloroform filling their lungs. George was away overnight at his brother's house in a nearby village, a fact which must have prompted the attack. Brother Dawson awoke first to the intense cold and nearby roar of water in the Halloween chamber, the focus of all their plans. The unconscious professor yet to realize their perilous situation. "We have you at last, Benson." The unmistakable voice of Abbot Gregory, but infused with condescending overtones, which drew the professor out of his chemically induced slumber. "You evil bastard!" exploded the professor. "Where's Brother Dawson?" "Here with you, also trapped and defeated, Professor," quipped the smug Gregory. "Now you'll pay the price for meddling in our business." "But you asked me to come here and do just that. I had to keep up respectable appearances, and be seen by my monks that I cared and was concerned for them, and that I was actively seeking professional help." "It's all become clear at last now, hasn't it, Professor?" he said sarcastically. "Very clear, Gregory. Go back to hell." "All in good time, Professor. First, we have work to do, making you and Dawson here suffer for your deeds before we dispose of you for good." "Bad choice of words, Gregory. Not for good, but for evil." "Very amusing. But I must admit you are right." The cold was becoming unbearable as the professor and Brother Dawson took in their surroundings in that evil stone chamber. They were each secured and propped up against the sloping wall of adjacent alcoves, the chamber by now dimly lit by daylight from the central aperture, part of the old well shaft above them. Gregory and Thomas had positioned themselves in the remaining alcoves opposite and focused their attention on the vent in the center of the floor, which they all partly encircled. Gregory took out his little bottle of miasmic vril, which had previously been used to drug the professor, and leaned forward to allow a few drops to descend into the annulus, smiling at Thomas as he resumed his reclining position. They both began chanting and gesticulating as the minutes passed. Then, accompanied by a hideous deep rumbling, just a faint wisp at first developed at an alarming rate into a vertical shimmering cloud as a demon materialized before them, forced from its slumbers in hell through the membrane dividing the two worlds, the world above and the dark evil world beneath, an early, angry awakening requiring tremendous effort to rip the membrane so easily ruptured on All Hallows' Eve. A sense of achievement was evident on the faces of those who summoned, and frozen horror on the others who witnessed it. "Now is the time," uttered Gregory through clenched teeth. emulated by Thomas's maniacal grin of anticipation. The demon evolved into a more substantial form and then fragmented into miasmids, accompanied by deep bass tones and vibration from the ground beneath their feet. Colored miasmids swirled ever outward toward all those assembled in the chamber, like a galaxy in torment. With eyes closed in intense expectation, all four were not sure what was to happen next, but what did happen was entirely unexpected. Duncan appeared in the opening to the river tunnel. Events transformed from swirling, energy-draining terror to a calm peace as the demon quickly descended back into the vent from whence it came, like a frightened rabbit scurrying back into its burrow. It was clear Duncan had a power greater than the emanations from hell. Duncan stood to one side as Gregory and Thomas made their hurried escape into the river tunnel. "Don't let them go, Duncan!" called out the frantic professor. "They're harmless now their powers have been taken from them. Now let's untie you and get you out of here. I'll explain later." The two bewildered men followed Duncan back up the tunnel to the mountain cave and the relative comfort and safety of Duncan's improvised living room, where he revealed his story of how he acquired his awesome power. "I am visited by ghosts, gentlemen. At first I thought I must be dreaming, but gradually I had to accept the truth. The souls of tormented monks, young girls who died as witches, and the Christmas children of Grimsfell all visit me through the river tunnel. It acts as a dimension portal from the good dead to the good living. They have a remarkable energy drawn from the power of good. It overwhelms evil, and I have some of their power bestowed to me, stored within me for when I may need it. It's their gift to me. I used it at the chamber. It's difficult to believe, but I've seen it with my own eyes, with Brother Dawson as a witness," admitted the astonished professor. "This, then, is our weapon, Duncan?" "Not on its own against the Corvids." Why not?" "Because they're immune through their immortality of reincarnation. They gave up human form for their continued eternal existence as Corvids, to escape death by flight, and in doing so are protected from any powers which would otherwise threaten them, except, that is, when they give way to temptation on Halloween and relish their brief return to mortal human form. For this privilege they are compelled to conjure the demon of revenge, to replenish the miasma which influences susceptible good monks in the abbey, to become evil recruits in their cause. You're right that fire is the only means to their permanent destruction during the brief time when they're human again, but the presence of my power will act as a catalyst for the power of good to succeed, like throwing petrol on the fire, so to speak. I will be there for you on that day to ensure the destruction of the evil, and to put the souls who visit me at peace." Grateful to Duncan for saving their lives, they settled down to an uneasy sleep in makeshift beds with crowded minds on the verge of nightmares.